Torquay United Football Club is an English association football club based in Torquay, Devon. The club participates in the National League, the fifth tier of English football, having been relegated from League Two in the 2013 Euro 14 season. They are based at Plainmoor and are currently managed by player-manager, Nicholson. History Formation to World War I. The original Torquay United was formed in 1899 by a group of school leavers under the guidance of Sergeant Major Edward Tomney. The newly founded club played its inaugural match against an Upton Cricket Club 11 on one of Farmer John Wright's fields, which was situated at the top of Penny's Hill, on Teignmouth Road on the site of modern Parkhurst Road. After a season of friendlies, the club joined the East Devon League and moved into the recreation ground, their home for the next 4 years, Plainmoor being occupied by Torquay Athletic Rugby Club at this time in a reversal of the current situation. In 1904 Athletic secured the lease on the recreation ground from underneath United, and Torquay and District League rivals Nicholson took over the lease of Plainmoor, leaving United homeless for the first time in their existence and facilitating a return to the farmers' fields on Teignmouth Road. However, the club was on the move again when the fields were sold to be developed into what would later be known as Parkhurst Road. United soon found another home, sharing with Torquay Cricket Club a nearby Cricketfield Road for 4 years, and during that time won their first honour, the Torquay and District League title in 1909. Following this breakthrough for the club merged with local rivals Nicholson in 1910, adopted the name Torquay Town and finally moved into Plainmoor, where they would remain to the modern day. During this period the ground was shared with the team's remaining local rival Nicholson. Both sides were playing in the same league, the Plymouth and District League, alongside the reserve teams of Exeter City and Plymouth Argyle. Torquay Town would later win the league in the 1911 Euro 12 season. Election to the Football League. In 1920, after the resumption of the Football League following World War I, United's local teams Plymouth Argyle and Exeter City were both elected to the Football League as founder members of the Football League 3rd Division. This prompted a movement in the town to merge the two remaining teams together and create a new entity capable of competing at this level and being elected into the new league. Relations between the two Torquay clubs were poor, but in 1921 matters finally came to a head. Torquay Town was desperate to join its local rivals in the league, and after many discussions Nicholson at last agreed to a merger, enabling the new club to become the sole representative of the town and turn professional. To further its case for league election, the new team was to be called Torquay United again, reverting to the town's name of circa 1910. The new club entered the Southern Football League, famous for being the league that Tottenham Hotspur played in when becoming the only non-league team to win the FA Cup, once again playing alongside Plymouth and Exeter's reserve sides and also Boscombe. Torquay went on to finish in 6th place that season, and during the summer break had the audacity to apply for Football League status, but failed to gain a single vote, seeing Boscombe elected to the league instead. From 1923 onwards the league was split into Eastern and Western halves, and Torquay United found themselves playing in the Western section. In 1925, the club battled through 5 qualifying rounds to reach the first round proper of the FA Cup for the first time in the club's history. Captain Percy Mackrell led the team through 2-1 Euro 1 draws before a strong Reading side won the second replay 2 Euro 0 at Plainmoor. In 1927, Torquay finally won their first league title since the Torquay and District League of 1912, winning the Western Division of the Southern League. United had the same number of points as Bristol City reserves, but their 3 Euro 1 win on the final day of the season helped them to win the league on goal difference. The club then went on to lose the Southern League Championship final against the Eastern champions Brighton and Hove Albion reserves 4 Euro 0, but it was the start of an upturn in the club's fortunes. Capitalising on this momentum, the club once again applied for league membership and was successful this time, joining the Football League 3rd Division at the expense of Aberdare Athletic, who dropped out after failing to be re-elected to the league. Finally, the town of Torquay had a professional league team and had joined Plymouth and Exeter in the Football League at last. A new wooden grandstand costing £150 was erected at Plainmoor for United's inaugural season in the Football League. It has previously stood at Buckfastleigh Racecourse, but unfortunately in 2011 it was demolished to create a new stand in 2012 to be called Bristow's Bench in memory of the late Paul Bristow. It was also during this period that United changed its club colours from the early colours of light and dark blue, into black and white stripes, which led to the club being dubbed the Magpies like their fellow league club Newcastle United. United's first match in the league took place on August 27, 1927, and was aptly against Exeter City at Plainmoor. The side for that first game was Milsom, Cook, Smith, Wellock, Ragg, Connor, Mackey, Turner, Jones, McGovern, Thompson. A crowd of 11,625 watched a 1-1 draw, with Torquay's goal coming from Bert Turner. The team's first season in the league, however, was not a success. They followed up the draw with Exeter with a 9-1 thrashing away at Millwall. And of the 48 games played that first season, Torquay won 8, drew 14 and lost 20, finishing bottom on 30 points, thus having to win re-election to remain in the league. Throughout the 1930s, Torquay struggled against financial problems, such as having to replace the stadium roof when it was blown off in 1930. They also failed to finish higher than 10th in 12 seasons. In the last few seasons before league football was suspended during the Second World War, Torquay struggled in Division 3 South, finishing 20th and 19th out of 22 teams. Notable Torquay players from the pre-war era include Paynton-born George Stabb, who scored 24 goals during the 1932-33 season, stalwart Albert Hutchinson, and Dartmouth-born winger Ralph Burkitt, who later went on to play with distinction for Arsenal and Middlesbrough and win one full England cap. In 1939, Torquay qualified for the final of the 3rd Division South Cup, a competition in which the club had previously lost 1-0 to Exeter City in the 1934 final. However, the 1939 final was never played due to the outbreak of World War II. Weber era when league football was resumed in 1946, United continued to struggle and finished 19th. However, thanks partly to the goals of their new striker Sammy Collins, the club broke the top 10 barrier in 1949 for the very first time, finishing 9th and then 5th in 1950 off the back of Collins' goal-scoring antics. In 1954 United changed their club colours again, the black and white stripes being changed to gold and blue to reflect the resort's sun, sand and sea image, colours which the club has maintained to this day. With the change of colours came a change in fortunes, starting with the club's greatest ever FA Cup moment that very season. After defeating Cambridge United 4-0 at home and Blythe Spartans 1-3 away, Torquay were drawn against Leeds United, away, in the 3rd round of the Cup. Torquay were not expected to go to Elland Road and get any kind of favourable result, yet they managed to hold the Yorkshire club to a 2-2 draw. The scene was thus set for over 11,000 fans to crowd into Plainmoor on the afternoon of Wednesday 12 January. Incredibly, with goals from Collins, Harold Dobby, Ronnie Shaw and captain Don Mills, playing against his old club, Torquay ran out 4-0 winners, to set up a 4th-round clash with Huddersfield Town. The Torquay United vs Huddersfield Town 4th-round FA Cup game at Plainmoor will always live on in the memory of those who attended the match on January 29, 1955. Torquay lost 1-0 to the higher-placed Division 1 club, but the official attendance of 21,908 remains a club record. Following their FA Cup heroics, in the 1956-57 season Torquay just missed out on promotion to Division 2 on goal difference. The season had begun well and by April, the possibility of a first promotion to Division 2 was the talk of the town. After home wins against Northampton Town, Southampton, Newport County and Queen's Park Rangers, United found themselves sitting at the top of the table, with future World Cup winning manager Alf Ramsey's Ipswich Town just 1 point behind. A trip to Crystal Palace for the team and over 1,500 Torquay fans travelling on the last day of the season beckoned. Torquay only needed to win the game to be certain of going up, but they managed only a 1-1 draw at Selhurst Park, and Ipswich, who won their final match away to Southampton, took the title on goal average. United failed to repeat this form the following season, and after finishing 22nd in the league and were placed in the new Division 4, created by the deregionalisation of the two third-level divisions. With Eric Webber still in charge, United ended their first season in the league's new basement division in 12th place. But the next season, the club returned to form, and on April 27, 1960, 8,749 fans saw Torquay United beat Gillingham 2-0 at Plainmoor to return to the third division with 2 games of the season remaining. However, after only 2 seasons in the third division, they were again relegated on the last day of the campaign, with a 4-2 away defeat at Barnsley, in May 1962. Torquay came very close to regaining their Division 3 status when they finished 6th in both the 1962-63 and 1963-64 campaigns. In 1963, Webber signed striker Robin Stubbs for a club record fee of £6,000 from Birmingham City. He went on to be the club's top goal scorer at the end of the 1963-64, scoring 24 goals in 34 games in his debut season. Torquay's FA Cup run of 1964-65 was the highlight of a disappointing mid-table season as United again failed to return to the third division. After travelling to Canterbury City in the first round and beating them 6-0, United disposed of Colchester United in the second round 2-0 at Plainmoor. In the third round, Torquay were drawn at home to giants Tottenham Hotspur. In front of Plainmoor's second-ever largest attendance the official attendance was slightly above 20,000 The team performed well. Billy Atkinson put United 1-0 up from the penalty spot after Robin Stubbs had been felled. Spurs responded, turning on the style to give themselves a 3-1 lead with 2 goals from Alan Gilesian and 1 from Maurice Norman. And then, in the last few minutes, it was the turn of record signing Robin Stubbs to net 2 goals and make it 3-3. The first attempt at a replay in London was cancelled, with the majority of United's travelling fans having already arrived in the capital. A week later though, in front of 55,000-strong crowd at White Hart Lane, the match went ahead. Jimmy Greaves scored a hat-trick as Tottenham showed their class to win 5-1, Stubbs hitting Torquay's lone consolation goal. After finishing in 12th at the end of the season, Eric Webber was finally sacked after 15 years as manager by new chairman Tony Boyce, who felt the club needed refreshing. Boyce and Webber's successor were soon to write their own part of United's history. O'Warrell era Webber's replacement was Frank O'Warrell, who arrived fresh from winning the Southern League title with Weymouth. In his first season in charge, O'Warrell oversaw Torquay's second promotion when they finished third in Division 4, while England won the World Cup on home soil. During the following couple of seasons, O'Warrell used his connections at West Ham United to bring many ex-Hammers to Plainmoor, John Bond and ex-international Ken Brown being 2 famous Upton Park names to appear in gold and blue. At the end of their 1966-67 campaign, United finished in 7th, and at the end of their 1967-68 season, United came very close to promotion to Division 2, once again. With Torquay leading the table during Easter 1968, United got their first ever coverage on Match of the Day, beating promotion rivals Bury 3-0 in front of more than 10,000 fans at Plainmoor. However, a poor run-in saw United finish 4th, 2 points behind the promoted duo Oxford United and Bury, with Shrewsbury Town in 3rd place. This period also coincided with the club's fans being voted the best-behaved supporters in the league. The O'Warrell era ended in 1968-69, when he left to manage First Division Leicester City and later Manchester United. Lower league disappointment During the following end-of-season clear-out, star striker Robin Stubbs was sold to Bristol Rovers for £12,000. Another 2 seasons of indifference in Division 3 saw the club finish in mid-table positions. Then at the end of the 1971-72 campaign, United found themselves in the relegation zone, and back in the basement division. This led to a relatively uneventful decade with consistently mid-table finishes. Although in January 1977 Pat Cruz, a centre-half for Torquay, created a world record by scoring an own goal after just 6 seconds in a league match against Cambridge United at Plainmoor. O'Warrell made a return to Plainmoor in 1976 when Malcolm Musgrove lost his job after a disappointing FA Cup defeat against non-league outfit Hillingdon Borough. He soon moved upstairs into the position of consultant manager, and ex-Plymouth Argyle promotion-winning captain Mike Green was brought in to control first-team matters. The end of the 1977-78 season saw the Gulls finish in 9th place, with Willie Brown finishing up as top goal scorer with 12 goals. Halfway through the campaign, just before Green's arrival, O'Warrell bought local Devon-born striker Colin Lee from Bristol City, who duly scored on his Torquay debut, and went on to score 10 goals in 23 games. His time at Plainmoor was short, for in October of the following season United accepted a £60,000 offer from Tottenham Hotspur for his services. Lee would famously go on to score 4 goals on his debut for the London club during their 9-0 demolition of Bristol Rovers, and would return to United in various capacities in later years, ranging from caretaker manager, to director of football, and to his present position within the club, that of chief executive. Mike Green then left the club, to be replaced at the helm, for the third time, by Frank O'Warrell. O'Warrell didn't stay in charge of team matters for long, bringing in ex-Scotland international Bruce Rioch to become player coach. After a great start to the 1981-82 season, the Gulls soon started to flag, and ended up in 15th place. During the following summer Rioch was named manager, and the following 1982-83 campaign saw United again off to a flying start. They finished 12th, but reached a 4th round of the FA Cup for the third time, going out of the competition at Plainmoor after a thrilling 2-3 defeat at the hands of Sheffield Wednesday. During this period, United as all English clubs were at the time was struggling with falling attendances and a negative perception of football in the country as a whole, and by the end of the season on May 2, 1984 only 967 spectators watched the 1-0 victory over Chester City at Plainmoor. Money was tight at the club and the club's board was putting pressure on Rioch to sell Colin Anderson, the club's star player at the time, to balance the books, following Rioch claiming a good few for Anderson could well save the club. Anderson's form nosedived, infuriating Rioch. This culminated in Rioch punching the player in the jaw after Anderson nutmegged him during a five-a-side match in training. Faced with the prospect of Anderson going to the PFA over the matter, the club suggested Rioch resign, which he promptly did. 20 years later, he said, "What I did was inexcusable. It was a period of my career which I deeply regret, but I learned from the experience." In February 1984, former Chelsea favourite Dave Webb bought the club. Webb brought in ex-Bournemouth players Derek Dawkins and goalkeeper Kenny Allen to strengthen the squad, and also attracted the former internationals Eddie Kelly and Tony Curry to the club. United would go on to finish the season in a strong 9th place. At the end of the 1984-85 season, United finished bottom of Division 4 and had to apply for re-election to stay in the Football League for the first time since 1928. To worsen the problems the club was enduring, a suspicious fire destroyed half of the grandstand on May 17, 1985, just 6 days after the Bradford Stadium fire, destroying a third of the old grandstand. Nobody was hurt, but as a result, the ground's capacity fell to below 5,000. For the 1985-86 season, David Webb became managing director and appointed Stuart Morgan as manager. However, for the second successive year United finished bottom of Division 4, and again had to apply for re-election. The last side to finish bottom of the league 2 seasons in a row, Workington lost their league place, but Torquay's bid was successful. The 1986-87 season saw automatic relegation to the GM Vauxhall Conference introduced into Division 4 for the first time. With the final game of the season to go, Torquay were third from bottom on 47 points. Below them were Burnley on 46 points and Tranmere, also on 47 points but with an inferior goal difference. Lincoln City had 48 points and seemed in least danger. The final game of the season was against Crewe Alexandra, featuring a young David Platt, at Plainmoor. At half-time Crewe were leading 2-0 and things looked bad for Torquay, 2 minutes into the second half, Torquay's centre-half, Jim McNichol, scored from a free kick, but despite an all-out attack, Torquay seemed unable to get the equaliser, even hitting the crossbar. Tranmere secured safety by winning their final game on a Friday night. Burnley were winning their game, and while Lincoln were being beaten by Swansea, they would still finish above Torquay by a single point as things stood. 7 minutes from time, a piece of football folklore was created. A police dog by the name of Bryn appeared to think that Jim McNichol was running to attack his handler, and sank his teeth into the centre-half's thigh. It was during the resultant 4 minutes of injury time that Paul Dobson scored possibly the most important goal in the club's history, and kept them in the Football League, with Lincoln dropping into the GM Vauxhall Conference. The start of the 1987-88 season marked the dawn of a new era in Torquay United's history. Cyril Knowles became manager, marking a turn for the better in the club's fortunes. The season started with a 6-1 victory over Wrexham at Plainmoor, and ended with Torquay just missing out on automatic promotion, but earning a playoff place, losing in the playoff final to Swansea City after losing 1-2 in Wales, and battling to a 3-3 draw at a rain-soaked Plainmoor, the Swans being promoted on a 5-4 aggregate. Also during the season, Torquay United beat Tottenham Hotspur 1-0 at Plainmoor, reviving memories of the Great Cup tie of 1965, Derek the Doo Dawkins scoring the important goal in the first leg of a League Cup game. The team also reached the Southern semi-final of the Football League trophy. During the season, Knowles also introduced a 16-year-old left-winger called Lee Sharp to the team. In May 1988, Lee Sharp transferred to Manchester United for £180,000 in one of the biggest transfers of Torquay United's history at that time. He would later go on to represent England on the international stage as well. Nearly a year later, in May 1989, United made their first appearance at Wembley in the final of the Sherpa Van Trophy. Torquay had disposed of Swansea and Cardiff in the group stages before beating Gillingham, Bristol Rovers, Hereford United and finally Wolverhampton Wanderers in the Southern final to reach the final. A crowd of 46,513 saw Dean Edwards put Torquay 1-0 up against Bolton Wanderers, but Bolton won 4-1. The Bateson era. Mike Bateson took over as Torquay chairman in May 1990, taking over from Lou Pope. The beginning of the 1990-91 season saw Torquay off to a wonderful start. They were unbeaten for 14 games and were clear leaders in November, but they faded dramatically. Bateson sacked Smith in April and appointed former United captain and then youth coach John Impey as manager. Impey proceeded to breathe new life into the team, guiding them to 7th place and the playoffs for a second time. Torquay won promotion again on May 31, 1991, winning a playoff final on the club's second visit to Wembley against higher-placed Blackpool. Goals from Wes Saunders and Dean Edwards earned Torquay a 2-2 draw in normal time. No further goals in extra time resulted in a penalty shootout. Successful penalties by Mickey Holmes, Wes Saunders, Paul Holmes, Chris Myers and goalkeeper Gareth Howells, combined with Dave Bammer's miss for the opposition, made Torquay winners 5-4 on penalties. The Gulls were promoted to Division 3 due to this victory. However, despite the high-profile signing of Justin Fashanu, football's first openly gay footballer, the appointment of Ivan Golak as manager and well-publicised visits of Julie Goodyear to the dressing room, United were relegated again after just one season. Golak's time at United was brief and Paul Compton was appointed to replace him in 1992. The introduction of the FA Premier League at the end of the season meant they were relegated from Division 3 to Division 3. Paul Compton invited Neil Warnock to help him as consultant in January 1993. But shortly after this he resigned, leaving Warnock in charge. The former Scarborough and Notts County manager guided the club through another close shave with relegation and then left. His major addition to United's playing staff, player coach Don O'Riordan, took the senior job. O'Riordan continued to play an important midfield role and he managed, on a tight budget, to guide United to the playoffs again during the 1993-94 season, finishing 6th and once again qualifying for the playoffs, Unfortunately, the team missed out on a third trip to Wembley after an ill-tempered playoff semi-final against Preston North End, to a Euro 0 up after the first leg. Torquay United lost 4-1 at Deepdale in the final match played on their artificial pitch. At the end of the 1995-96 season, Torquay finished bottom of Division 3 after a disastrous campaign and were threatened with relegation to the Football Conference. However, they were saved from relegation when Stevenage Borough's ground was deemed unfit for league football. Eddie May, who had replaced O'Riordan early in the campaign, was dismissed at the end of the season and replaced by Kevin Hodges. In the 1997-98 season, after finishing fifth at the end of the league season, Torquay United were once again in the promotion playoffs. Had the team won a point in their final game of the season at Leyton Orient, they would have gone up automatically, but they lost the game to a Euro 1. An emphatic 7-2 victory over Scarborough in the semi-final, including 4 goals from star striker Rodney Jack, resulted in Torquay United's third appearance at Wembley. However, United lost 1-0 to Colchester United in the Wembley final. Kevin Hodges left the club to return to his former club Plymouth Argyle after the season ended, and Wes Saunders returned as manager. The following season proved to be a massive disappointment, and Torquay only narrowly avoided relegation to the Football Conference. Matters improved in the 1999-2000 season, with a finish of 9th, just 3 points off the playoffs. However, 2000-01 proved to be a dreadful season, and Saunders was sacked with the club adrift at the bottom of the table. He was replaced by Colin Lee, who improved results and gave the club a chance of survival. On May 5, 2001, the final game of the 2000-2001 season saw United away to Barnet. Before the start of the game, Barnet were bottom of the third division, 1 point behind Torquay. The Gulls needed to avoid defeat to keep their league status. Barnet needed to win. Thousands of fans were locked outside the tiny Underhill ground as United stormed to a 3-0 lead, with goals from Kevin Hill, Jason Rees, and David Graham. Barnet fought back to 3-2, but United held on for the win to condemn Barnet to the Football Conference. Lee left at the end of the season and was replaced by Roy McFarland, who only managed to deliver a mediocre 19th place finish the following season. McFarland subsequently quit at the end of the season, in protest of Mike Bateson's decision to sack assistant manager David Preece without consulting McFarland, who was replaced by Leroy Rosenior. 2002-03 would see a major improvement over the previous 2 campaigns and a finish of 9th place, with only a late run of bad results keeping Torquay out of the playoffs. The end of the 2003-2004 season saw United win automatic promotion for the third time in their history, against all odds in a nail-biting finale at Southend. However, their stay in the upper echelon of the football pyramid was only to last for 1 season, as a final day defeat against Colchester United condemned the Gulls to a return to the 4th division of the leagues after narrowly being edged out by Milton Keynes Dons for safety in Football League One. The fact that it was the MK Dons that had stayed up at Torquay's expense saw messages of sympathy from fans of other clubs, mainly out of a dislike for the franchising of football. In the 2005-2006 FA Cup third round, Torquay managed to pull off a 0-0 draw with Premiership strugglers Birmingham City. However, they lost the replay at St Andrews to a 0-0. Despite this achievement, the club fell into the relegation places of League Two. Former Exeter City manager John Cornforth took over as caretaker manager from Leroy Rosenior and soon after was appointed as manager until the end of the season. The side's form worsened, however, and Ian Atkins replaced Cornforth in April. Torquay United's form immediately turned around, going on a 4-match unbeaten run. Atkins managed to rescue the side and lift them a comfortable 3 points from relegation. Torquay made a decent start to the following season and were in the playoff spots for the first few months of the season, but a run of just 1 point from 9 games saw them crash into another relegation battle. In October 2006, Bateson stepped down as chairman to be replaced by Chris Roberts, who soon afterwards sacked Atkins, replacing him with former Czech international Luboa Kibak. Despite his credentials as a player, there was some concern raised that Kibak had no real history as a coach, and he did little to endear himself to fans by bringing in Richard Hancock as coach. Torquay's dire form continued, and the club crashed to the bottom of the table on Boxing Day. They would ultimately never leave the foot of the table after that. After the worst run of form in the club's history, Kippick eventually quit on February 5, having won just one of his matches in charge, and Colin Lee was soon after appointed as the new director of football. Keith Curle was appointed as head coach on February 7, 2007. Roberts resigned amid growing pressure from supporters and the board of directors, all of whom were unhappy with his conduct as chairman, on February 21, 2007. Local hotel owner Keith Richardson was announced as the new chairman the following day. However, on March 7, 2007, former chairman Mike Bateson was reappointed as chairman, the move following Chris Roberts' company, Torquay United Holdings, inability to meet the next payment to purchase the club from Bateson. Curle was unable to significantly improve matters, and Torquay United lost their 80-year Football League status on April 14, 2007, following a 1-1 draw at home to Peterborough United. Illustrating just how disastrously wrong the season had gone, 4 of the club's 7 wins and 18 of their 35 points had been earned while Atkins was in charge, and before Roberts took over the club. The side's post-season soon descended into chaos, as Mike Bateson stepped down as chairman and was replaced by Mervyn Benny, after which Colin Lee was sacked, and Keith Curle was not invited back to coach Torquay United and soon took a coaching job at Crystal Palace instead. Former manager Leroy Rosenior was reappointed, only to be sacked on the same day. Finally, a new consortium headed by Alex Rowe and Chris Boyce, fiscally backed by a £15 million National Lottery winner and United fan Paul Bristow, bought the club from Bateson. Rowe was installed as the new chairman, and former player Paul Buckle appointed the club's new manager, who set about rebuilding the team for its first season in the Conference Premier. 2 years in the Conference Premier = Torquay United started their first season in the Conference Premier while beating Aldershot Town 3-0 and went unbeaten until losing 3-1 away to Burton Albion in September. This defeat spurred them on and they won 5 straight games on the trot, leading the table by the end of October. Their form in the league dipped through November and December, but a 4-1 victory over rivals Yeovil Town in the FA Cup, live on the BBC, gave the club a massive boost. They couldn't take advantage of this and dropped numerous points over the Christmas period, including a 4-3 defeat to arch-rivals Exeter City. Torquay got their revenge, beating Exeter City 1-0 a week later. However, by the end of January, Torquay was second, 3 points behind Aldershot Town. An unbeaten February followed, but Torquay were now 5 points off Aldershot Town. Away from the league, Torquay were progressing well in the FA Trophy and had reached the semi-finals by the end of the month. March started horribly, with Torquay losing their first 3 league games of the month, including a 2-1 defeat at home to leaders Aldershot Town. This caused Torquay to fall 14 points off the top and drop to 4th. On Saturday 15 March 2008, Torquay reached Wembley for the first time in 10 years with a 2-1 aggregate win over York City in the semi-finals of the FA Trophy. After finishing third in the Conference Premier, Torquay had to play their fiercest rivals Exeter City to determine who would reach the play-off final to play either Cambridge United or Burton Albion. Torquay had to play Exeter City away first with a return leg at Plainmoor. Torquay started the first leg poorly and were fortunate when Tim Sills scored just before half-time, but Exeter City levelled when Wayne Carlisle equalised, and just when the game looked like a draw, Chris Zabrowski pounced on a poor clearance by Paul Jones to make the final score 2-1 to Torquay. Torquay knew going into the second leg that if they scored 1 goal, Exeter City would need 2 goals to force extra time, and when Kevin Hill scored in the second half in his record-equalling appearance, the match seemed all over, but Exeter City then scored 4 goals in the space of 18 minutes to dump Torquay out of the playoffs to ensure they had to have another season in the non-league. On May 10, 2008, Torquay lost 1-0 in the FA Trophy final to Ebbsfleet United at Wembley, with former Gulls striker Chris McPhee scoring the winner just before half-time. Torquay started their second season in the Conference Premier as badly as the first one had finished, picking up only 5 points from their opening 7 games, The following 3 months however were to be the best in years, as Torquay remained unbeaten from September 7, 2008 to December 2, 2008, setting a 17-game unbeaten record. They reached the FA Cup third round with a 2-0 win over Oxford United at the end of November. The start of 2009 was shaky, but on January 3, 2009 Torquay beat Blackpool 1-0 at home in the FA Cup third round to reach the fourth round of the competition for the first time in 19 years, where they faced Coventry City. They struggled for goals throughout January, and against Coventry City with a sellout crowd of 6,018 they lost a game which they should have won, losing dramatically late on to an 87th minute goal by Elliot Ward. At the end of the month they lost to Southport 3-0 in the FA Trophy third round. Torquay United were promoted back to the Football League on May 17, 2009 after a 2-0 victory over Cambridge United in the Conference Premier Playoff final at Wembley. With goals from club captain Chris Hargreaves and leading scorer Tim Sills, Torquay triumphed 2-0 over Cambridge in an entertaining match watched by over 35,000 fans. Lee Phillips played for Cambridge the day, and set a record of losing at Wembley 3 times in 3 years with 3 different clubs. Indiana, 2006-07 season he lost 2-1 to Morecambe in the playoff final versus Exeter City, even after putting Exeter 1-0 ahead in the game. Then in the 2007 August season he lost in the FA Trophy final to Ebbsfleet with Torquay United 1-0 thanks to a goal from former Gull, Chris McPhee, and then in the 2008 September season he lost to Torquay United in the Conference Premier Playoff final. Returned to the Football League. In their first season back in League Two, Torquay finished the season in 17th place with 57 points. Following victories over Cheltenham Town and Stockport County, the club progressed to the third round of the 2009-10 FA Cup, where they lost 1-0 to Brighton and Hove Albion. The next season, Torquay United reached the fourth round, equaling the club record. On January 29, 2011, they had the possibility of progressing to the fifth round of the FA Cup, but lost 0-1 to Conference Premier leaders Crawley Town. There was added misery for Torquay United fans the next day when the draw for the FA Cup fifth round saw Crawley Town being scheduled to play away to Manchester United. Had Torquay been drawn Manchester United, they would have benefited from the money that such a tie generates. That same season, Torquay came seventh, guaranteeing a playoff place on the final day of the season on goal difference. They met Shrewsbury Town in the playoff semi-final, progressing to the final thanks to a 2-0 aggregate win. On Saturday 28 May 2011, they lost 1-0 in the final to Stevenage and remained in League Two for the 2011-12 season. Paul Buckle resigned the day after the defeat, and moved to Bristol Rovers, taking assistant manager Sean North along with several Torquay players with him to the Memorial Stadium. United enjoyed an even more successful season in 2011-12 under new manager Martin Ling, achieving a record high of second place in League Two. However, towards the end of the season their form dipped and, after finishing in sixth place, they had to settle for a playoff tie against Cheltenham Town. They lost the away leg 2-0 then lost the home leg 2-1, ensuring another season in the fourth tier. Despite Ling announcing that the team were looking for another promotion season, they were stuck in mid-table during the first half of the 2012-13 campaign, before Ling was taken ill in mid-January. A disastrous run of losses under assistant manager Sean Taylor followed, the club dropping to just outside the relegation zone. That led to Alan Kneale being appointed as interim manager for the remainder of the season. Results picked up after this, and a run of 3 games unbeaten at the end of the season ultimately secured their Football League status with a 19th place finish. Ling was dismissed at the end of the season, the board noting that results had been unacceptable even before his illness, and Kneale's role was made permanent. On April 27, 2014, Torquay were relegated to the Conference Premier despite beating Mansfield Town 3-1, after both Bristol Rovers and Northampton Town won their games. Back to the Conference Premier. Torquay started the 2014 Euro 15 season in the Conference Premier poorly, losing to Gateshead 1 Euro 3 with Ryan Bowman missing a penalty. After that match Torquay had a brilliant unbeaten run, first of all beating Welling United 3 Euro 0, then drawing 0 Euro 0 with Southport and then with Dartford. Yet another draw came when they drew with Aldershot Town 1 Euro 1 at home. That was their last draw for a while as they went on a 6-game unbeaten run. Starting with a 1 Euro 3 away win at Lincoln City, then playing at home beating Nuneaton Town 4 Euro 0, they were 3 Euro 0 up after 30 minutes. They then went on to win 2 away games, winning 0 Euro 2 in both of them. First winning at Chester, then Grimsby. The next game was a home game that was looking to be a 0 Euro 0 draw until the 90th minute when the Gulls captain Luke Young scored an incredible 35-yard free kick to give Torquay the 3 points. The next game was again at home and Torquay won 2 Euro 0 against Dover Athletic, but they were hardly the better team as Dover had multiple chances to score multiple goals, including missing an open goal. That was the end of Torquay's 10-game unbeaten run when they had a shocking game away to bottom of the table Telford, losing 4 Euro 3. That started a terrible run of form in the end of September, large amounts of October and some parts of November. They lost 2 Euro 1 away to Forest Green Rovers, then won at home to Wrexham 2 Euro 1, but that would be their only win in a while. As they lost a televised game to another team in the relegation zone, which was Alfreton Town, they lost the game 4 Euro 2. They then lost at home to Grimsby 2 Euro 3, lost an FA Cup qualifier to Aldershot away 2 Euro 0 and lost away to Kidderminster Harriers 2 Euro 1. Torquay had another televised game being showed, and this one was against high-flying top of the table Barnet. Torquay was 0 Euro 2 up at half-time, but straight from kick-off Barnet got one back, but then straight from that kick Torquay went up and Louis Briscoe scored on the turn from around 20 yards out to make it 1 Euro 3. Later on Barnet scored again, but Torquay held on for the win. The next game Torquay weren't so lucky as they were 3 Euro 1 up again at home to Forest Green Rovers with 15 minutes to go, but ended up drawing the game 3 Euro 3. Torquay then played at home to Gateshead. This game was quite odd and interesting. Ryan Bowman scored a penalty in the 8th minute and it stayed like that until the 86th minute when Alex Rodman scored a penalty for Gateshead to equalise. 3 minutes later in the 89th minute Rob Ramshaw headed the ball into the net for Gateshead, which looked like the winner, but 2 minutes later after 90 plus 1 minutes Ryan Bowman tapped one in from close range to equalise for Torquay. In the last kick of the game Luke Young's free kick was heading in when the keeper made a brilliant save, and with Ryan Bowman running in for the rebound a defender came in and cleared the ball away as the full-time whistle went. It ended 2 Euro 2. Equals a new dawn equals. Early in 2015, Chairwoman Thea Bristow announced that the club was up for sale. After Bristow resigned in March 2015, she agreed transfer of her estimated £3 million 80% stake in the club for £1, subject to sale to new locally based owners. Ownership of the club eventually moved to a new consortium made up of 10 local business people in June 2015, with the new board consisting of David Phillips, Ron Peterson, Kara and Sean Roberts, Carol Peterson, Harry and Jill Careswell, Angela Richards, Mervyn and Val Balson, Steve Breed and Dean Edwards were co-opted onto the board. The new board, operating on a good but substantially lower budget, took decisive action, firstly putting Chris Hargreaves, Lee Hodges and Kenny Vicey on gardening leave, disbanding the youth department, and appointing Paul Cox as manager. On September 19, 2015, United received their biggest loss in 20 years when they lost to Bromley 3-7. On September 28, 2015, it was announced by the club that Kevin Nicholson, former Torquay United player and club legend, would be the club's new player-manager. Torquay United chairman, David Phillips, was quoted as saying, "We are delighted to have Kevin on board as player-manager." As a player for the club, he displayed outstanding consistency over many years and is quite rightly regarded as a legend here. Stadium. United played their very first game, a friendly, against an Upton Cricket Club 11 on one of Farmer John Wright's fields, which was situated at the top of Penny's Hill, on Teignmouth Road. After a season of friendlies, the club joined the East Devon League and moved to the recreation ground, which was to be their home for the following 4 years. In 1904, Torquay Athletic Rugby Football Club secured the lease of the recreation ground and United moved back to the Teignmouth Road site, but again was forced to move when the field was sold to developers to build Parkhurst Road. At the time, Torquay Cricket Club were located nearby in Cricketfield Road, and so this site was United's next home. The club remained in Cricketfield Road for 4 years. In 1910, United merged with Elecom to become Torquay Town. Elecom's Plainmoor ground became the home of the new club, and the shared home of local rivals Babacom. Torquay Town and Babacom finally merged and became Torquay United in 1921. The club has remained at Plainmoor ever since. Possible move. Following his takeover of the club in October 2006, Chairman Chris Roberts went on record stating his desire to move the club to a new multi-purpose stadium catering for football, rugby and athletics. Speculation placed the site of the new complex at the Torquay Recreation Ground, currently occupied by Torquay Athletic Rugby Club. Since Roberts' resignation, this move has become unlikely, with succeeding chairman Alex Rowe distancing himself from the plans, saying that the club and the fans wish to remain at Plainmoor and will build upon the current ground to increase capacity. The club are looking to buy the houses behind the away end and building an extension to the away end, and also to acquire the school and build a bigger grandstand to increase the capacity to around 9,000. However, recently plans for an extended grandstand have been submitted to the council for planning permission, in cooperation with Westlands School. This was approved on June 9, 2011, with the increased cost believed to be approximately £82 million, with the new structure to be named Bristow's Bench in memory of the late Paul Bristow, who essentially underwrote the Gulls' return to the Football League. With the grandstand going under destruction and the new stand not being ready for the 2011/2012 season, Plainmoor capacity stood at 4,500 for the 2011/2012 season. It was however ready in time for the start of the 2012/2013 season, where it witnessed its first sellout crowd with the visit of Devon neighbours Plymouth Argyle in early September. Players, as of October 29, 2015. Current squad. Note, flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Out on loan. Note, flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Managers. Honours. League 2, 3rd place, 1959/60, 1965/66, 2003/04. 3rd Division South, runners-up, 1956/1957. Football League 4th Division, playoff winners, 1990/91. Conference Premier, playoff winners, 2008 Euro 09. Southern League, winners, 1926/27. Plymouth and District League, winners, 1911/12. Torquay and District League, winners, 1908/09. 3rd Division South Cup, runners-up, 1934, finalists, 1939. Football League Trophy, runners-up 1988/89. FA Trophy, runners-up 2007/08. Devon Senior Cup, winners, 1910/11 and 1921/22. Devon Bowl, Devon St Luke's Bowl, winners, 1934, 1935, 1937, 1946, 1948, 1949, 1955, 1958, 1961, 1970, 1971, 1972, 1996, 1998, 2007, runners-up, 1923, 1931, 1933, 1938, 1939, 1954, 1959, 1960, 1962, 1966, 1967, 1969, 1974, 1997, 2000, 2002. 2003, 2013. Notable purchases: Leon Constantine from Peterborough United for £75,000 in December 2004, Billy Bowden from Swindon Town for £70,000 in July 2012, Afon Williams from Barry Town for £70,000 in March 1999, Robin Stubbs from Birmingham City for £6,000 in 1963. Notable sales: Rodney Jack to Crewe Alexandra £650,000 in July 1998, Matthew Gregg to Crystal Palace for £400,000 in October 1998, David Graham to Wigan Athletic for £315,000 in August 2004, Bobby Olajic to Peterborough United for £300,000 in June 2012, Lee Sharp to Manchester United for £185,000 in May 1988, Ewan O'Can to Bournemouth for £175,000 in July 2012, Mark Ellis to Crewe Alexandra for £80,000 in June 2012, Colin Lead to Tottenham Hotspur for £60,000 in the 1978-79 season, Ryan Bowman to Gateshead FC for £10,000 in July 2015, Levi Ives to Bristol City for £30,000 in July 2015. Notable players. References. External links: Torquay United FC. On BBC Sport, Club News Euro recent results Euro upcoming fixtures, Torquay United official club website, Torquay United fans unofficial forum.